Hello everyone, welcome back to the CS Revelation. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a second practice of object-oriented programming in Java. Classes and objects, practice 2. So the requirement is asking to write a complete class, and the name of this class is Crab. That includes a string property, myColor, and an integer property, myAge. So we have two properties here. And also is asking us to include default constructor and another constructor that accepts parameters. So we have a default constructor and also a parameterized constructor, two constructors here. And in addition, we also need to implement getAge and setAge methods, two of those methods. And later, we'll take a look at the following part of the requirement. So let's start by creating the class first. So to create a class, let me right click on the source package and choose Java class. I can add a Java class to my source package, but I can also create the class within the same file as my main class. I can create my class here as well. Okay. I prefer to create it in separate files. It's just a better practice for me. It's better way to organize my files within the same package. So let's use that method. So we're going to say the name is Crab, and I now have two classes, one class that contains my main method and one class that is uh, per the requirement. Now it's asking us to create two properties. The first property is of type string. The second property is of type integer. So I'm going to make these actually private to this class. The reason why I'm making them private, so that there will be no direct access through other classes. However, if I want to have access to those, I will use the get and set methods here. So the getters and setters will help me do that. Okay, so private string. So it is a string variable. So private string myColor. And the second one is also private and it's of type integer. So private int myAge. Okay. And we need our constructors. So let's start by declaring our default constructor. So public, the constructor must have the same name as the class. So crab, and it takes no parameters because it's a default constructor. However, we are told that the default constructor will initialize the myColor to red and myAge to 0. So let's do that. So here we're going to say myColor is equal to red and myAge is equal to 0. Okay, so that's what the constructor really does, the default one. And then we need a parameterized constructor here that accepts two parameters and use them appropriately. So technically the two parameters really is about, the age and the color. So we're also going to say public crab. It takes two parameters here. So the first one is of type string. Let's say that is C. That's in for color and int for age. And then we're going to set my local variables. So my color is equal to C and my age is equal to A. Okay. So this is the default, the parameterized constructor is that when you're trying to instantiate this class Crab using this constructor, you will be instructed or prompted to input or give two values, one of type string, one of type integer. And that's what the constructor going to use to set the values for those properties. And the third part here is asking to create the getter and setter for age. So those are methods. However, these are getters and setters means we're going to use them to get and set the values for myAge. So I'm going to make them public. So public, the get, it means it will return something. So that means it has a return type, get int, that is age, and it will return my age. Okay. And the second one is a setter, so means we're going to use it to set the value for my age. So that's it won't return anything, so it's public void setAge. And if it's going to set age to a certain value, let's make it prompt the user to input or to give the value that you want the age to be set to. So I'm going to say int, let's say a, and this is going to do something similar to the constructor. That is going to be my age is equal to a, right? So this is going to give me access to my local private variable, my age, and I will be able to set its value to a new value using the setter method. Okay, so now I created my properties, I created my constructors, a default constructor and a parameterized constructor, and I created the two methods that were asked for me to create, that is the getter and setter for age. I'm not instructed here to create getters and setters for myColor, but if you were, then you could create them the same way. Now let's go back to the main method and let's answer the rest of the requirement. It's saying next, construct a Crab CB1 object. So the name of the object is CB1, which is an instance of the class Crab. And we're going to use the default constructor to do that, okay? After creating that object, we want this object to invoke all the accessible methods and record the outcome. Okay, so to create an instance out of the Crab class means creating an object. We mention the class name and then the object name. So it's CB1. And we're going to use the new keyword to invoke the constructor. And in this case, we want the default constructor. So Crab, that takes no parameters. And next, we want to invoke all the accessible methods. So the first method is get. So let's find out what accessible methods are there. So CB1 and then dot, this gets you all the accessible methods. And here what really meant the accessible methods is not all these methods. It actually meant the ones that we have implemented. So you have the getAge and the setAge. So let's see. Let's start by setting the, actually getting the age. So for that, we need to print the return value. So println. Okay, and okay, so I need a print statement to print what the get method is going to return. So cb1 dot get age, okay, and maybe we add some more text here to make it more meaningful. So we're going to say CB1 age is, and then plus that. Okay, maybe the next thing is also to set a new value for age, and let's print it as well. So I'm going to say CB1 dot set age, right? This is how you set or get access to the age, my age property. So I'm going to set it to say to 15. Notice that if I attempt to get access to the age or my age variable, I don't see it here. It's not accessible. That is because it's private. And because it's declared as private, it's only private and it's only accessible within the Crab class. However, I'm trying to access that through a different class. It's a separate class. This is practice 2 class. So therefore, the set age and the get age methods will come in handy, and they will give me access to those local variables or private variables. Okay. Now let's print the new value of age after we have set it to a new value. So CB1 age is after update, let's call it. And let's run this and see the outcome. Okay, so it says here that CB1 age is 0. That's the result of this because it's trying to get the age after the construction of this object. And then when we use the setAge method to change the value of my age property, we're setting it to 15 instead of 0. Notice that when we're trying to print its value after the update, it basically printed that the age is actually 15 now, and it's not 0. So the getAge and the setAge gave me access to those private variables of my class. Okay, so the next thing is to construct a second Crab object, CB2, using the parameterized constructor now. So using the parameterized constructor, we're going to construct the second object, and we want to record the outcome. Okay, so to do so, same way. So it's going to be Crab, and then this is CB2. That's the name of my second object, and new Crab. And in this case, we're using, notice, we're going to be actually using the second constructor, the parameterized constructor, because we are supplying some values here. So the first value is for color. That's going to be, let's say, red. And the second is going to be for age, which is an integer value. Let's set it to, for example, 7, right? So this has constructed an object for me, which is an instance of Crab. It's called CB2. And it has used this parameterized constructor to construct it. Okay, so earlier we used the default, means that whatever the default constructor is going to do, that's how the instance is going to be created. However, with the parameterized constructor, it will prompt the users to supply two values to use them for the constructor of that instance object. Okay, now let's invoke the available methods. So similarly, we're going to actually copy and paste this. The only thing we're going to do is just changing the names of the objects. So this is CB2, and this text should say CB2. And this, we're going to do it, let's say 9, and let's make CB2 invoke its methods. Okay, let's run it now. So watch, the first two lines are the result of this code, which is basically applied to CB1, the first object. But the first line is using the default constructor. We get the age, and it is 0. And after updating or setting my age to a new value, the value is now 15, and that's what we got here printed. The second two lines, those ones apply to the CB2 object, which is constructed using the parameterized constructor. And notice that when we try to get the age, it tells us that the age is 7. Because when we instantiated the class Crab, and we created this object CB2, we created the object with this initial value for my age, which is 7. And that's why it tells me that the age is 7. Now, you notice here, I'm actually doing CB1 that set age to 9. And when I'm trying to print or get the value for CB2, it's still 7. That is because I was actually changing the age for CB1 and not CB2. And if I do that actually for CB2, notice that the age is now going to show as 9, right? Okay, so that is the answer to this assignment. It's actually just a practice to simple practice, basic practice. So how do you create a class in Java, and how do you instantiate that class? How do you invoke the methods of that class, and so on. All right, so this is the end of this video. This was your second practice of object-oriented programming.